Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the return of the Pantheon Podcast, the podcast all about Smites and the esports relating to it. My name is Darkkai3, your host, and with me, as per usual, this has not changed, is the one, the only, the sexy, AlphaJackal.
You took a really long time to say my name there.
I really did.
You're like, God damn it, not him again. Why am I doing this again?
I often ask that question, why am I bringing this back? Why are we doing a podcast again?
Because it's fun and because people need that information and because content, God damn it, everyone loves content.
And we are, and always have been, the premier EU Smite podcast.
Well, I think you'll find you've missaid only.
No, that's the same thing, isn't it? If you're the only one, you're also the best and worst podcast.
I mean, you could say that.
I could, and I am.
Alright, well, on today's podcast, of course, we're going to be talking about the Hi-Rez World Championships, Hirez Expo, and the World Finals that took place there. The Roster Apocalypse, which has already kicked off in style. Patch 3.25, which has just been released a few days ago. And some of the sneak peeks that have already been dropped for Season 4, and whether some gods will stand to gain or lose anything.
Yep, so let's jump straight in to the Hirez Expo Worlds World Championship matches. Those are some amazing matches, I have to say. Wow.
Probably some of the best Smite we've ever seen. And you always say that going into World Championships and coming out of it, but this time it definitely felt like the best Smite ever.
Oh yeah, these matches, like, having not played for the best part of the year and coming back into it, the matches are far and away better than what I can remember them being before. And the fact that there were teams, finally, outside of EU and NA that could actually put up a decent fight, that was amazing to watch.
And yeah, the one region which I presumed would put up a lot harder of a fight was the Oceanic region. Obviously, they had a very strong lineup going into the World Championships. That I'm going to get this wrong. I know I'm going to get this wrong. Direwolves. There we go. It's the Direwolves roster. That used to be Pandemonium. They came up against some very tough opponents. They came up against Obey, who eventually finished second, and then they came up against a surprising opponent in Allegiance, who found themselves in a do-or-die situation because of their loss to Lich Esports, of all people.
Yeah, the loss to Lich, like, who would have seen Lich beating ALG of all teams? And then, I mean, the fact that ALG were then having to go, they were at a chance of actually getting kicked out completely, and then it was just unfortunate for Direwolves that they went up against ALG, who are a relatively strong team, regardless of how much I dislike Weaken.
Well, I think that's the entire scene in general just dislikes him, apart from North America and a few people outside of it.
I think even most people in North America dislike him.
Like, when you actually talk to people, when you actually talk to them in real life, you get a new appreciation for them, and you actually start to like them a lot more. So maybe it's just one of those things, again, that not many people have actually talked to Weaken in real life.
Well, that's probably a big thing. A lot of people, like, the number of times that him and Incon have had a bit of beef, and people are quite happy to listen to Incon, but when Weaken puts his thing out, people are less likely to watch it, you know? Yeah. So everyone gets one side and is refusing to listen to the other side, so yeah.
Hey, who knows? But back to the matter at hand, Lich Esports, of course, they did beat ALG, and one man really stood out throughout the entire Hirez Expo, and he's become everyone's new hero. It's Nozix, the mid laner.
The new hero. Best Ra world.
Well, yeah, he was legitimately the best Ra at the World Championships. His play on Ra was so good that every single match afterwards where Lich Esports was playing in, Ra was banned first pick by every other team.
That's something you never see. Like, you never see Ra even get banned. The fact that he was being banned as first ban shows the amount of respect people had for Nozix's Ra plays. It was impressive to watch.
Then afterwards, he went on to the Thoth. That was his fallback pick after the Ra got banned consistently against him. And whilst he didn't have as strong a performance on the Thoth, he still shows a lot of flashes of brilliance, and the fact that he kept up as well with the North American and European teams shows that the LATAM region is definitely the strongest one outside of the traditional top two.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing to just take from China. China's has had a very ropey year, should we say? Considering what happened with their pro teams, and was it 3 of them disappeared pretty much, didn't they?
I think the sponsor dropped out, which sponsored 3 of the teams. Yes.
So that made it a bit awkward for China, but definitely LATAM may have caught up with the rest of the world, well, rest of the Smite world at least, and they were definitely a region to watch from now on, I reckon.
Yeah, we definitely want to be keeping a close eye on that one, and everyone's always going to say going into the next World Championships if Nozix and his team are going to make it back in again, because don't forget, Nozix was a sub. The Lich Esports regular mid laner could not make the World Championship because of visa issues, and Nozix was on the team that finished second, and they had to bring him in as a sub at the last second.
I mean, that's probably just showing how good a player Nozix is. If he was on another team and then got pulled into it, and he played that well on the world stage, I wouldn't be surprised to find that Lich have kept him on as their mid laner. You know?
Yeah, I mean, if I was Lich Esports regular mid laner during the season, I was sweating a bit during those finals.
I may not have a job when he gets back here. We got to watch out here, guys.
But of course, one of the big things dominating the pro side of the conversation was the invade meta that was going on. Everyone from the support to the jungler to the solo laners was picking up Wrath left, right, and center. Consistent invades at level 1, at 3 minutes in, at 6 minutes in, you name it. There was always an invade. There was always aggression being played out.
There was a lot of invading, and the fact that we had a lot of level 1 fights as well, and that was just, I don't know what it is about level 1 fights, but it's so entertaining to watch, because you get an idea of what each player prioritizes in their fights, because you've got one ability. That's all you've got, and positioning and active use, and if you're caught out and you've got no active, or you don't have the foresight to use your active, like beads or not beads, purification, which will be called beads again, or sanctuary, you get caught out, and the chances are that you're gonna get collapsed on, or if you haven't chosen your ability yet, being forced into having a very what's the word?
Low clearing ability.
Yeah, so you're getting kicked out of there, and then suddenly your clear's gone, and the team that forced you to do that is now steamrolling through your lane because you can't clear.
And whilst it was entertaining to watch from a spectator point of view, a lot of the pros before the World Championships, and even during and afterwards, we even saw some of the Energy players tweet about this, that it wasn't the best one to play. It was far and away one of the worst metas to actually play in, because the invade to level 1 happened, and by that point, 90% of the games have already been decided. Yeah.
I mean, in a lot of games, before the 10-minute mark, at the very least, games have been decided. In a fair number of cases on the world stage, we did see a fair number of turnarounds, which was pretty cool to see, especially one of the later matches, one of the early matches between Energy and Obey. Oh my god, that match just kept going. But
yeah, the first game went on for about 52 minutes. It was the longest one at a World Championship ever, and it was definitely probably the best game in the Smite World Championships, but I think the best set had to go to Luminosity versus Energy, which was the second semi-final.
That was such a good set. Like,
went to a best of 5, and LG really looked like they could have, and probably even should have, taken that 5th game.
I have to say, throughout the entirety of Worlds, because Barracuda seems to have this curse that whenever there's a LAN, he will be sick. Without fail. Is there a LAN? Yeah, I'm sick, guys. I've got the flu again. But the fact that he could play at such a level while suffering from the flu just says how good of a player that Barracuda is, and the fact that his team was working so well with him. LG is definitely a really strong team, and honestly, I agree with you. LG, if Barracuda was in top form, not saying he wasn't in top form, but if he was in top health, I honestly think LG would have been in finals.
Oh no, the 5th game was a bit back and forth during the first few minutes, and one bad team fight, I think it was around left mid Harpies, around the Gold Fury sort of area, and that Energy then took that Gold Fury, then started to take control of the entire game, and the game was over from there pretty much for LG, despite the fact that they had a couple of late game picks on their side. But on a different note was the crowd that really felt like a 6th player for LG. Every single time a kill went in favor of Luminosity, every single time a God was picked for Luminosity, there was just massive cheers from the crowd. And that can really affect how teams play.
Oh, it can. And then you got to say as well, everyone loves an underdog. And LG coming into Worlds, just before we even got to Worlds, everyone wanted to see LG get there. And the fact that who was it? It was
Orbit v Flashpoint.
Yeah. So it was if Flashpoint won, Flashpoint went to Worlds. Was that right?
Yeah. Flashpoint, who were formerly Denial before the group stages of the Super Regionals, if they won that final game against Orbit, they would have gone to Worlds as the second wildcard instead of Luminosity, but Orbit managed to pick up the win, and Luminosity went to Worlds instead.
And there's something about it, because LG went to Worlds from the place from Orbit. Orbit had no chance of going through, sadly. Really strong team, but didn't get through. But LG, when you've got the fact that someone else managed to get you into the world stage, and you're seen as the underdog, it can do wonders for how you play. And LG in general were playing out of their minds. It was crazy how well they were playing. And
well, in the space of about 2, maybe even 3 months at a push, Luminosity have been playing at 3 different lands. They've been playing at the North American land, and then they played at the Super Regionals, and then at the World Championships. And in each one of those, you could see a progression. You could see a level of learning from Scary D, from Xenotronics, and from Masked. Each one of those really started to step up their game, really started to play better together as a team. And that just meant that there was space for Barracuda and Jeff Inler to do what they do best, which is form a massively scary duo lane and then start to let Barracuda farm up and carry from there.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that LG has a lot of very strong players. Barracuda, quite possibly the best AD carry in the world. And Jeff Hindler, he definitely knows how to work alongside his team. And it's him that makes the call, isn't it, as well, Jeff?
Pretty much every single time, he's the one in the comms making the calls, the one that's keeping the team up if a team fight's not gone their way. Always making sure that everybody stays focused and on the point, because that's something which a lot of newer players to the SPL and then newer players to the Challenger Cup even will do. They'll get overly giddy, they'll get overly excited about being ahead and start making bad calls, or start getting overzealous and start diving deeper and deeper and deeper. But Jevin is just that voice of reason to say, no, we should back off, we should take the buffs instead of this tier 2 tower, which is at full health and they're 5-man defending, and try push later.
Yep. I mean, Jeff as well, he's a very restrained player. He knows his limits, he knows what his team is capable of, and he's more than capable of telling his team to, no, we need to pull back, guys, don't go too deep, because that's what they're expecting. And that capacity to be able to do that helped them immensely against NRG, because we've seen it constantly. NRG can be behind, and then something happens, and they win. And we saw it so many times on the world stage that NRG were behind, and then they waited. They're very good at waiting for their chance. The chance arises, they capitalise on it, and then they wait for you to get into that the mindset of what's going on now, and then they just smash through your defenses and get the win every time.
Well, it's this 5 minute, there's like this 4 or 5 minute period in the game from 15 to 20 minutes where energy, something clicks in them and something changes about the game, that they just become immensely more powerful and start to just steamroll the game from there. It's always like that 17-minute mark. Pretty much every single game on that point, they do something and then they win the game off it on that one play at 17 minutes. Yeah,
I mean, it's... I don't know what it is. If anyone knows what it is, please tell us. But there is something. Hey, IRAF, if you're listening, you're probably not. You're busy swimming in a pool of money. But if you're listening,
more after his fines.
Well, yeah. How many fines did he get?
I don't think he got any.
There was so much BM, but it was good.
Yeah, it was banter. It's not BM, it's banter.
It's banter. And the fact that I think the thing for that banter in the Obey versus Energy match at the end, just before the match started, with him being, oh, you choked last time you were on the world stage, are you going to choke again? And that's not really BM, because Ataraxia did choke. So, I don't know.
No, it's just they're just ripping into each other. They're just making sure that they know that this is a serious game and that this is the world stage. We're not going to go easy on you.
Yep.
And Energy in a 4-game set, 3-1, took their second world championship in a row.
Yeah, but it wasn't easy for them to get those three wins in out of 4. Obey were trying their hardest. Like that first match in the Obey versus Energy match. Wow.
I legitimately think that at a play at around 50 minutes, where Obey were in Energy's Titan room, and I think it was 4 versus 2 or 5 versus 2 or something, and all of a sudden, pretty much everyone in Obey just died. I think that point there is when a lot of the wind and a lot of the momentum was taken out of Obey's sails, and Energy just pounced it out full force and took the next 2 games off it. It took till game 3 for Obey to recover from that play, because if you're in the Titan room in your first game of the finals of the World Championships and you pretty much throw a guaranteed win from there, it can really affect you.
Well, the thing about that match as well is right when they were at the Titan, they could have won. And I think that's the part which probably shook them a bit. They could have won if they'd focused on the Titan and not cared about I can't remember who's still alive and defending. But the fact that they didn't choose the Titan, they split their targets, and then they had to go back to base with their tail between their legs because they couldn't physically kill the Titan at that point. That's got to be a hit to your confidence, hasn't it? And it like you said, it took them 2 matches to get back into that, and then they managed to get a win out. But by that point, it was too little, too late. Against Energy, they would eat you alive if they get the opportunity to.
And Energy, they didn't look particularly great in their quarterfinals against ALG. There was quite a few sloppy plays and mistakes coming out from them, and they shored some of them up for the Luminosity game. But then in the grand finals, we did see exactly what Energy are all about, how good they can be, and why they are considered the best team in Smite, period.
Oh, yeah.
From past, present, or even future, maybe.
Yeah, and like you said, the AOG match, even Rafa himself in the post-game interview, he admitted that he wasn't happy with how his team was playing. He admitted he was sloppy, he thought some of his team was sloppy, and we could see that while they were playing. But the fact that they could still win says a lot for them, and says probably about as much about AOG, sadly. But
yeah, I think it says a lot about Weekend's Thor, if anything.
Wow, will he ever hit a dunk?
I mean, we're still waiting.
But the matches at Worlds were great, but I have to say there was one player in the entirety of the matches which stood out, especially in the Obey versus Energy, and that was Variety. He was playing his little heart out.
The fact that in the regular season he got soloed by Dimmy 4 times in a game, and then comes to the World Championships and then solos Dimmy 4 times in a game, or 4 times in the set, really speaks to a lot about the strength and growth of Variety as a solo laner.
I mean, Variety's been around for quite some time now, hasn't he? And
yeah,
watching him improve and carry on like he has, he is a really good player. He's possibly one of the best solo laners in the world. And the fact that his team came second, it says a lot for how he was going. Because in those final games, Variety was doing amazingly well, but there was just something going on with Panda-like. Like Panda-like and that Sylvanas were not getting along, and I can't help but feel if they had chosen a different support, or I don't know, Geb, Fafnir, someone else other than Sylvanas, they may have had a chance at winning.
Well, they were valuing the heals and the protections coming out from Wisps in the early game to try and force early objectives, to try and force invades. But against other teams, against pretty much anybody else in the World Championships, that sort of strategy works because not too many teams sort of had that much practice against it or have had time to theorize a strategy to come up against it. Against Energy, they pretty much played that consistently. They played the in-fame meta. They played aggressive for the entirety of the time they were in the Challenger Cup and still playing their way to the top. So they know exactly the ins and outs of that sort of strategy. They know how to play against it. They know how to play into it. And that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, so I honestly think Obey would have had a chance, but I don't know what it is about the I know that they're prioritizing the Sylvanas and his ability to heal with Wisps and stuff, but the big question I was having while watching Panda play that was how much practice has he actually had on Sylvanas? Because it did look like Sylvanas was one of his weaker supports.
it doesn't really fit too much into his playstyle. When you think of Panda, like when you think of Frezzy, you think aggressive. You think about your Oasis, you think about your Bacchus. Sylvanas, yes, he can be aggressive in the early game, especially with a blink. But if you're getting a shell, if you're getting your wisps up to maximum as early as possible, you're not really playing as the aggressive support. You're playing more as a counter initiator or as a pick-based support, and that doesn't really speak to his playstyle.
No, I feel that if they'd taken Panda-like's playstyle or Frezzy's, it feels so weird calling him Panda-like. You know, we've known him as Frezzy for so long, but
Yeah.
if they played to Frezzy's strengths instead of over what felt like overvaluing the Sylvanas, it felt like they could have done a lot more.
It remains to be seen if they keep on with the Sylvanas and keep on with this sort of strategy and try and adapt it and mold it into a pocket strategy, or if they just abandon it and say, right, Season 4 is going to be a new meta, let's go into something else, let's just practice what we are good at, let's practice what we are the best at, and see what happens from there. But you want to talk about variety and talk about how well he played, it's because Razhaska really speaks to his play style a lot. He likes to go into the backline, he likes to just zone out the enemy carry, possibly even kill them if possible, and then go onto the jungler, then onto the mage. And Razhaska could do that. He could just get into the backline instantly with that through the Cosmos and then just kill people because of its insanely high damage.
Yeah, and we saw him do that countless times. And people just weren't expecting Variety to turn up behind them. And by the time that they'd realised that Variety was there, he'd killed 3 of them and buggered off again. Almost consistently. And if you're allowing a god like Razhaska in your backline and you're not responding immediately, that's going to cause you big issues. And it happened to a fair few teams.
Yeah, and Variety, whilst he was one of the standout players of the tournaments, I still have to give a good shout out to Zapman, because again, he did one of the most Zapman things you can ever see in a Smite game.
Got soloed.
That, yes, he got soloed by I think it was, did they play China in one of their games?
Yeah, he got soloed by the Chinese ADC.
He got soloed by the Chinese ADC with the help of minions, but we don't count that. It's still a solo kill.
It's still a solo kill. Yeah.
But then in one of the games against Obey, where he was playing Ulla, he just jumps into 4 people and then picks up basically 3 kills for himself.
That is a very Zapman play. He is an amazing ADC. I honestly don't think he's as good as Barracuda, but Zapman... There's a reason Zapman was at Worlds and Zapman wasn't at Worlds.
You had to go there, didn't you?
I had to make... It's a Zapman conversation. I had to bring it up.
I mean, of course, Eager didn't actually get to the finals. They lost in the semis to Obey, but they did get to the grand finals and actually won in the Xbox side of the World Championship.
So they didn't quite make it to the top of the PC scene, but they made it to the top of the lower league, I guess.
Pretty much.
Yeah. It's still sad, isn't it, that Hi-Rez are trying very hard to push the Xbox scene out there, but it's still not seen as anywhere near as good as the PC scene.
Well, that's just people's presumptions about the scene going on past for what's actually on screen. If you took the time to actually watch the Xbox Worlds and see exactly the plays that were going on, yes, there were a few more missed abilities here and there and a few more misplays here and there, but it's still the level of theory crafting and the level of play is that of the SPL. Is that of pretty much most of the teams at the World Championships, save for Obey, Energy, LG, and maybe even Eager themselves.
Well, the interesting thing we need to take into account as well with the Xbox tournament is it's a bit more difficult because on PC we have our mouse and we can do Twitch stuff really easily.
Yeah.
But the console, it's not as easy. There are certain gods which are immensely difficult to play on the console just because you're using analog sticks instead of a mouse. You've got to show some respect to some of the Xbox teams who are playing some of these really difficult gods on console and are being successful with them. So while I personally do take the piss out of the Xbox team a lot, the Xbox players are actually good at that level of play, and the fact that they still have to theory craft in the same way that PC players do. Honestly, I think on some of the theory levels, some of the Xbox teams could possibly beat some of the higher level PC teams.
I think there was a tweet about a year ago by one of the people who are currently the members of the Xbox Allegiance team, where they went onto PC for a scrim against I think it was a low-level SPL team. I can't remember which one it was, but they actually showed that they beat them. It was on the PC as well, so it shows that there's still the same level of competition. People just need to get their prejudice aside and enjoy the games for what they actually are, which is very, very good high-level Smite.
Yeah, once you start watching them, I mean, I never used to pay attention to them, and now that I started watching a few of them, and some of them are actually really good matches. I think, like you said, once people start getting past that, oh, it's just console, I'm not going to bother. I mean, once you get past that, you can actually appreciate the matches for what they are, regardless of what gods are being played.
Let's say the North American scene is definitely a lot more competitive than the European scene.
Is that quite possibly due to there being more LAN events for NA console?
Yeah, there's about the same amount for North America and Europe in terms of the console LANs, but the European teams, they didn't have the flood of Challenger Cup players to the Xbox like what North America had, because you see people like Cloud, you see people like Ekuga, who were high-level Challenger Cup players who were threatening to get into the SPL at the end of Season 2, just switch over to Xbox and just start dominating there instead, because that was guaranteed source of income, and that was a chance for them to prove that they were some of the best players out there. And they certainly have done that, especially Ekuga, whose Eager team did win the World Championships. But it's up to Europe now to decide whether some of the Challenge Cup players might be able to come over to the Xbox and instead challenge, or whether some of the homegrown, purebred Xbox players are starting to step up their game.
It'll be interesting to see, I feel, that... I mean, the big question we had in Season 2 was what was going to happen with all the PC players migrating over to the Xbox scene. And by the looks of it now, the number of the ex-PC players that are now stuck on the Xbox scene, that's good to see. They're sticking with it. It is going to be interesting to see how many homegrown stars are actually going to appear from the Xbox scene. And there's quite a high chance that we're going to see some really good talent appearing in Season 4.
Yeah, and in North America, I don't expect too many roster changes. Maybe a couple of the lower-seeded teams like Kingdom Esports might put a few players in and out. Of course, they still have to go through relegations first. Pretty much every team does at this point. But over on the European side of things, there's going to be a big shake-up, especially at the top, where Rival have had their Smite team disbanded.
So, wait, Rival, actual one of the best top one of the best EU teams, have just gone completely.
Yeah, the Rival team that was one win away from going to the World Championships disbanded.
Okay, was that a player decision or an org decision?
From the looks of things, it was a player decision. It was everyone really wasn't happy with the fact that they didn't get to the World Championships like they had hoped to do so, and like they were pretty much guaranteed to do so until they came unstuck against some of the North American talent that was over at the Xbox Super Regionals. And I think Rapio is looking to try and get back onto the PC side of things now. He was a phenomenal jungler on the PC, a high-level Challenge Cup player. Then he goes over to Rival, and it just, from there, became a one-team league. It was Rival at the top. Cyclone challenged them a couple of games and even took a game off them in the regular season and finished second. But outside of Rival, there wasn't really too many teams in the EU that could look like they could challenge NA.
Well, with them gone, that leaves... is it going to be a more competitive scene on the Xbox scene? Or is it just...
I believe everyone's going to be... It's going to be more competitive with the remnants of Rival going on to different teams here and there. Like, a couple might join Cyclone, a couple might join Excel. Even one or two might join Excellence, who knows? Or they might have a few of them stay with the Rival brand to just bring in a couple of people from the other teams. There's going to be a massive shake-up in the European side of things. NA, of course, probably just going to stay the same, like I said before. So Europe is definitely going to be a lot more competitive. A lot of the teams are going to have evened out skill levels, I would say, to the point where they might be able to start practicing together and improving together rather than just being, okay, we've lost a game within 5 minutes, let's go on to the next one.
Well, it would be interesting to see how people split out. But keeping on the same note of Lost Apocalypse and teams disbanding, PC has had First Blood taken, and is actually Cringe Crew are disbanding as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, Cringe Crew, they had a bit of discussion after the Super Regionals, and the fact that, well, not after Super Regionals, after the Gauntlet, and the fact that they just didn't quite make it to Super Regionals. They lost out to Dignitas in the final game, and they felt like it would be best to just go their separate ways, and it's definitely not going to be the same season without the Cringe Crew boys together at the same time.
No, but it's nice to see that Defiance is actually being thanks to every past member as well. So he's got a shout out to the previous 5 members before the Cringe Crew we know and love now. But it's a shame to see them go, isn't it, really?
And yeah, I mean, 4 of them will definitely find a team again. For Shaggy Shank, though, he's called time on his career. He is retiring completely from Smite, and to see someone like Shaggy Shank, who was absolutely phenomenal at ADC, I mean, he brought Ulla to the forefront of the meta back in midway through Season 2 on Team Coast. To see somebody like him retire, and see someone like him no longer be playing Smite competitively, it is really such a shame.
It is, but it's something that you can see fairly frequently, isn't it? There's game burnout, essentially.
Yeah.
He's been playing Smite for quite some time now, and there gets to a certain point where you look at it and you're wondering, do I still enjoy this? And if you're not enjoying it, it's best to move on to pastures new, and maybe at some point you could come back. You may come back and you may find you're enjoying it again. But it's a shame to see him go, but I do hope he has a good career in whatever he decides to do in the future.
Yeah, I mean, both of us here do wish Shaggy Shank the best of luck in whatever his endeavours take him to from now on. And to the rest of the Cringe Crew as well, hope all of them do find a team as soon as possible, because it's not going to be the same without all of them there. I mean, Emilzy still has a chance, because as the captain of Cringe Crew, he himself currently keeps the relegation spot. And if he can find a team to fill out the rest of the roster of 4 players, then he can enter that team into relegations themselves. Doesn't have to go through the open bracket.
So that's actually going to be pretty handy for the men. That's going to be pretty handy for Emilzy, especially. So if he can get a team together, I'm going to be interested to see how well they play. Do you reckon they'll be as strong as the current Cringe Crew, or?
I mean, that's hard to say, because we don't know any of the players that he's potentially looking at. We don't know who's being brought in. We don't know who he's trying out. And he may not even want the spot altogether. He may be joining a team further up the chain who finished like 5th or above. And if that happens, then that spot's just going to go away. And a 4th team from the open bracket will be invited up to relegations.
Do we know which team that'll be?
Well, the relegations... Oh, sorry, the open bracket still hasn't been played out yet.
No, it hasn't. No, you're right. Sorry, I'm getting my dates completely screwed.
I believe it plays out this coming weekend and the one after.
Okay, so that's going to be... So if you want to get some good Smite watching in, we do have the open bracket coming up in the near future. That's going to be interesting to watch. We have had Emilzy on the show previously before, though, haven't we?
I believe we did. He was on the 6th episode or 5th episode.
He's a very fun bloke, very nice to chat to. Actually, I think that's possibly one of our best ones, because he really got involved in the discussions. And
yeah, I mean, a couple of people we had on the show didn't really get involved too much, but he definitely was there to just chat about the game that he loved, which was Smite.
Yep, and hopefully he will find something good. If he goes up to a higher team, congrats to him. If he finds a good team for Cringe Crew at this point, that's even better. So, with that done, should we move on to possibly the most broken part of the podcast, which is the 3.25 update?
Yes, 3.25. The Celtic Pantheon arrived in Smite and brought with it the Morrigan, who, in my opinion, is probably one of the funnest gods to play ever.
Yeah, she's also the most broken god to be released ever. Seriously, there are gods which are labelled broken. Release Guan Yu, release Nemesis, release Susano. They were all ridiculous. However, they were broken in a different way. They didn't make your game stop working. Whereas Morrigan very much makes your game stop working. If you can complete a match with the Morrigan without having to relog or do something at least once, I don't know what's happened.
I think you've just gotten very lucky, or you've played on a game where the Morrigan hasn't used her ult.
At all. There's so many issues with the Morrigan. Do we have the patch notes that we want to go through, or?
I mean, we could go through the patch notes if you so wish.
Or we can just talk about Morrigan.
Yeah, I think just talk about Morrigan, because that was apart from the Morrigan, there wasn't really too much added into the game. There was a couple of minor balancing issues here and there, and a couple of skins released.
Carly was removed as well, wasn't she, fairly recently?
I believe so, because her destruction ultimates caused an issue in the game where it just ceased to exist.
I think there's another issue as well, where it seemed to be a strange thing about either starting the game or respawning, where it wasn't giving you the option to choose your target, and it caused you to get stuck. So hopefully, apparently they're trying to fix her at the moment, and they'll bring her back in when they do fix her. But for now, Carly is unplayable, literally.
Yeah, the only other real big change that happened in the patch notes, this is a small patch note, so it's very minor, but in this grand scheme of things it was a big one, is Skadi and her Calder no longer proccing Talaria boots when you just toggled Calder onto somebody.
The dream's over, man. The dream's over.
Because there was a lot of Skadi players going around with Talaria boots at the very start of the game, but just getting 150 gold for free just by toggling Calder on and off again for 5 times.
Yeah.
And it just got to the point where she was absolutely unbeatable in lane because she was so far ahead in terms of gold by the time you got there. And then she just goes into so much movement speed with Heartseeker and Masamune, and it was a nightmare to play against. And this small change, because Talaria boots, you have to do damage to them, really, to get that passive proc. And
well, it's
doing damage.
Doesn't it say damaging ability? And I think technically Calder is a damaging ability, but
Calder wasn't doing damage.
No, it wasn't waiting for the damage to come through from it. So, I mean, it's a shame that, like, if you remember way back when, you could play gods like Athena and just taunt them to get your gold proc. Now you have to still do damage. You have to do actual damage with Talaria boots to get the proc.
Yeah, it's a good change. It's a welcome change, and I'm sure many a ranked player out there will be great to see the back of Skadi because she was starting to become a very annoying thing in ranked. But back to the main meat and potatoes of the patch notes, and that was the Morrigan. So why don't we quickly run through the abilities and exactly what they do before we get into a bit more of a detailed discussion about her.
Yep, okay, so I'm bringing her up now. So she does have some pretty interesting abilities, and the ultimate is ridiculous. But her passive is essentially a basic attack stim. It's called Doomsayer. And it basically, the third hit of Morrigan's hit chain will explode, dealing damage to all enemies within range and dooming all enemies hit. I mean, doomed enemies will take additional basic attack damage over time, and that does 9% of the target's max HP over 3 seconds.
Well, I think you find it weakens enemies because there is her second ability applies a doomed stack instead. But we'll get also that in a second. The 3 aspects, which is her first ability, Morrigan summons her alternate forms to her side, and when activated again, they focus their power together to damage and stun enemies in front of them. It does a fair old whack of damage, and it's on a 7-second cooldown.
Hold on. I'm trying to find the things now. I'm looking at the thing in the game. 7 seconds.
Oh, sorry. No, the Dark Omen has a 7-second. It's the Deadly Aspect that has a 12 seconds. So I always get those two mixed up.
Yeah, I was wondering that. Again, 7 seconds? 7 seconds? That's insane cooldown. Yes, a 12-second cooldown. That Deadly Aspect is a fun ability to get off. It's great because you can actually do it while you're stealthed as well. So it's like, imagine you've got like Loki's 3 is essentially Morrigan's 1. And the fact that it stuns for a second as well is crazy.
It does have a wind-up time when actually casting the ability. It's a short one at that, but it's still just a tiny bit. You have to wait. Yeah, there's a bit of delay between casting it and actually hitting the damage and getting the stun off. So if you're proficient at juking around the Morrigan, you might be able to get away from it, but chances are if she's that close to you, you're pretty much dead anyway.
I mean, I've been having a few issues with the deadly aspects. And that's, for some reason, whenever I use it, the first 2 or 3 times I use it, I'm fine. I can just click and use it. Anytime more after that, I have to click twice. Because the first one, it looks like it fires, but it hasn't fired.
It's probably one of the very small bugs that they are not focusing on whilst they try and tackle the bigger ones.
Oh yeah, those big ones they are in dire need of fixing.
Because they even said so as well, that this has been a very difficult release because of how this god interacts with the other characters in the game and how difficult it all was to code. And it has been a programming nightmare. It has been riddled with bugs, but props Hi-Rez for actually sticking with it and just going with the flow and fixing problems as they come up. I
mean, they have had a fair amount of stick from the community for how buggy she is, but something we need to bear in mind is that when you've got a god like the Morrigan, there is a lot of interaction which you just can't test in a closed environment. And I think even on the PTS, there's not that large a number of players who use the PTS. So rolling her out live, they get live information about what's broken and what's not, what's slightly overpowered and what's underpowered, what needs tweaking. It's just so happened that the Morrigan has a lot of more issues than was initially taken into account.
They have certainly taken off quite a few of the biggest bugs with the Morrigan that were on the PTS. And, I'd say give it a couple more weeks, maybe even a month, and they'll have ironed out pretty much every single issue with the Morrigan, and we'll have the highest skill character in Smite.
Oh yeah, I mean, the fact that her synergy with other gods is unprecedented. We've never had a god like this who can basically turn into one of the other 9 gods. Like, the combos which people have been getting off already. Like, there's a video online of a Morrigan turning into a Nijar and ulting an Ulla who went up, and then he gets ulted again by the original Nijar who puts him up in the air, and then he gets knocked up in the air again by a Kumbhakana. And it's just, you're watching it going, I'm getting the feeling something's going to be changed at some point, but like, because that Ulla spent 11 seconds up in the air, so I don't know. But what's interesting to watch, though, there's so much synergy you can do with it, though.
Yeah, I mean, there is a point of balance, which I will talk about in a tiny bit, but let's just go through the rest of her abilities again. Of course, we were discussing her ultimate there, which was Changeling, which she can use to transform into a different god, one of the 9 gods on the map. You transform into them for 10 seconds, and you can use all their abilities. Even if they're on cooldown for them, you get all of them off cooldown. But back to her second ability, which is the one that does have a 7-second cooldown.
There we go, getting it right this time.
Yep. Dark Omen. Morrigan launches a wave of dark magic at her enemies that deal damage, deals bonus damage to minions, and applies an omen to enemy gods for 8 seconds. Gods with an omen will take bonus damage the next time they are hit by any damaging ability. And an important thing to note for everybody out there, the Dark Omen passive, where you do bonus damage to enemy gods, applies second. So if somebody lives on 2 HP, the Dark Omen passive will then kill them, and the Morrigan will get the kill, not the person who did the damaging ability.
That has generated a lot of salt in games. The number of times that someone has gone, I've got this kill, and then he explodes and the Morrigan gets the kill, who's the other side of the damn map at this point. There's always complaints that she's the goddess of kill steals. But you weren't going to kill them anyway with that ability, so whether that's a kill steal or not, it's a kill secure in my opinion. That's what it is.
It's the greatest kill secure ability of all time.
Oh yeah. I
mean, if the Morrigan's getting the kill, either A, you've built wrong and not doing enough damage, or B, you're just straight up not doing enough damage to kill them in the first place because their HPs are too high.
I mean, the fact that her initial damage is at level 1 40 plus 40% magical power. And then, once you've hit them with an ability of yours, she does another 40 plus 40% magical power. So she essentially damages them twice. So in the grand scheme, Morrigan has done most of the work.
Depending on the ability used, yes, I could see that.
Yeah. Depending on what.
If you're going in for a final judgment, I think that one's going to do a fair bit more of the damage.
Well, okay, fine, but you get what I'm saying, that you've done a ton of damage as Morrigan. So, and the fact that she's done it so that you can do more damage when you hit them, or they deck more damage, it doesn't matter who got the kill at the end of the day, you've killed them. Let's just leave it at that.
But there is one more ability to go through, and that is the third one, Confusion. And this one has generated, I think, the most salt out of any single ability on her kit because it gives her stealth.
And increased movement speed.
Yeah, the stealth duration goes up from 4 to 8 seconds, and the movement speed from 20 to 40% as you rank it up, with a cooldown of 15 seconds. It's absolutely insane that the fact that she goes invisible at level 19 at level 20, and she has the same movement speed as if you sprinted.
Yeah. It's crazy how fast she is. She's like Sonic when she's stealthed. But I'm gonna be honest. I honestly think Confusion is more balanced than Loki's one.
I think Confusion is a fair ability. It doesn't need changing too much. Maybe the movement speed at the top end could come down a tiny bit. But if anything else, it's absolutely fine. And the one other thing to note about Confusion is she does spawn a decoy, and that decoy runs to a target location, which you've set out beforehand.
Yeah. And I've seen people make some amazing plays with Morrigan doing that as well.
Yeah.
You know when you use it and you point it in a certain direction, it just walks in a straight line. It takes the most direct route. The number of people that have made it look like they've used the ability but haven't, and have just walked in a straight line, and people have just ignored her, is ridiculous. Because you kind of condition yourself to not pay attention to it. You just go, oh, it's walking in a straight line, it's the decoy. And then she turns around and annihilates the rest of your team. Like, it's actually, like, when you've got that thought in your head of, it's walking in a straight line, it's the decoy, and a good player who can play with that, you're gonna have a bad time. So usually destroy the decoy. Just hit it.
Just hit it once.
Just hit it once.
If you have to use, like, a low damaging ability, then do that as well. That's only at the very, like, necessary thing if they're behind, like, a wave or something.
Yeah.
But back to the 5-point balance, which I was talking about before we were going through all of her abilities. Unlike a god like Loki or a god like Alquang, who has stealth and can also just burst you down instantly, the Morrigan's abilities, in the correct order, which is Dark Omen, then into Deadly Aspects, still won't kill you. It just doesn't do enough damage to kill you. It will put you on very critical HP, but it won't kill you.
Yeah, I mean, she does a lot of damage, but it's not the crazy obscene damage we're used to from the assassin type gods. Loki will stealth, come up behind you, boop, before you even know he's there, you're dead. Alquang, he'll go stealth, appear behind you, and before you even know it, you've been eaten. But Morrigan, she doesn't... I'd say out of all of them, if they tone down her passive and tone down her movement speed, she's a pretty well-rounded god.
Yeah, I honestly think she's one of the more balanced gods released. I don't think we'll see her in competitive play for a long time, though. No. Because A, there are probably a bit too many bugs right now to consider her for a competitive play spot, and B, there are two positions where you can reliably play her, and those are mid and the jungle. If you place her in mid, you lose that big AoE damaging ability ultimate from your traditional mages like Zeus, like Ra, like Thoth, even Scylla to an extent. But if you put her into the jungle, again, you lose that sort of high burst, I'm going to instantly kill the ADC initiation sort of thing.
You lose a bit of the displacement as well, based on some of the jungles you see. Like Humbats, he's got the... Is it Fear No Evil?
Yeah, it's Fear No Evil.
Yeah, like that. The amount of displacement on that can completely sway fights. It's kind of an interesting thought, isn't it, of Morrigan? Because when you use her, you've essentially only got 4 ults, but she has access to all 4 of those ults. And she's a very situational god. I don't, because, you know Nike? We honestly thought Nike would have more of an impact in higher end play just because of her passive, and we're not seeing her as much as I was anticipating.
She was a prominent figure at the World Championships and was banned every single game for the finals.
Okay. Did you not feel she underperformed, though?
No, I feel like she performed as much as she should have done, maybe even overperformed.
Okay.
Every single game that Obey played with her, they won.
Okay. Okay, yeah. Okay, Nike's good then. I'm not denying she's a good god, but I don't know.
Yeah. I felt like Obey were the one team that really played her to the full potential of Nike, and every other team was just playing Nike as Nike.
Why'd you call her Nike?
Because that's what she says when she enters the battlefield, I think.
They're wrong. It's Nike.
I don't know. I just say what I want to say. I say the letters. There are letters, they form words, and I say words.
But back to Morrigan. Do you reckon she's going to be one of those? So when you can pick her, assuming she gets through the picks and gets through the bans, do you reckon she'll be an early pick or a late pick?
Late pick. Without a doubt, she'll have to be a late pick unless somebody finds a way to make her abilities so broken that they just instantly kill someone. Reckon to begin with, she might be played as an early pick because teams will still not have found ways to effectively deal with her and her stealth abilities to then go into the backline and kill somebody. But outside of that, you're really relying on your ultimate changing into somebody who has an effective ultimate. Like, if you have a Fafnir on your team or the enemy team, if you have a Zeus on your team or the enemy team, then you really are going to want to pick Morrigan because those two ultimates into the Coerce for the Fafnir, then into the Giant Detonate for Zeus, can do an excruciating amount of damage in turn team fights by themselves. And if you have two of those on your team, or if the enemy team has one and then you get one, it really levels the playing field to your advantage.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you can use a Zeus ultimate and still have a Zeus ultimate is pretty obscene, especially when you consider she copies the items of whoever she's copied as well. It's pretty ridiculous seeing how she can synergize. Actually, as it's just come to my thought. You know her confusion ability and her stealth?
Yes.
It has the exact same drawback that Ao Kuang's stealth has. Where if she takes
bit of damage, yes.
any damage whatsoever. So I've been thinking, are we going to see an increase in the use of Mystic Mail?
It would depend on the amounts of buffs or nerfs items around it get. Because you're building it as sort of like a luxury offensive item from your solo laners. And right now, you're just building Breastplate of Valor instead, because it just gives you cooldown reduction, it gives you mana, and it gives you 75 protections. It's ridiculous how many it gives you. If Mystical Mail gave a tiny bit more defense, if it gave a tiny bit more health, if it gave, I don't know, some MP5 or something, just a tiny bit more defense though would be the best thing to give it, and it suddenly becomes the best item in the game for solo laners to pick up second.
I think that's what the issues we had as well with Mystic Mail before, isn't it? Mystic Mail was picked up pretty much by every solo lane warrior, wasn't it? Really, and then they tweaked it a bit, and then people stopped picking it up. I think if they, like you said, give it a little bit more, it would get picked up more, and then the Loki radar has returned.
I don't think we're going to be seeing much Mystical Mail, depending on the changes. I do think we might see an increase in gods with damage over time abilities, like your Agnes, your Zeus can do a bit more damage over time. Anybody who does well with the Bluestone Pendant from the warrior side of things, we'll be seeing a lot more of them if gods like Ao Kuang, if gods like Morrigan really continue to get through, because those damage over time abilities will stop them from stealthing away.
And don't forget, you've got Kukulkan as well, the quintessential dot damaging ability god.
Yeah, no one picks Kukulkan unless you're Shadow Nightmare.
Well, yeah, I can understand why they don't pick him. But, you know, if you want dots, he's your man.
Yeah, definitely.
He's your dragon man thing.
Okay.
What?
Moving on.
He's not a man, really, is he? He's a dragon thing.
Well, he's a male dragon.
Is that still a man, though?
Anthropomorphic man.
I know we're getting into existentialism at this point, but is he anthropomorphic? He is actually a dragon. I'm looking at him right now. He is very much.
I mean, that's not a dragon.
It's a dragon.
A dragon has 4 legs and wings.
It's a serpent. Then it's like a. It's not anthropomorphized. He hasn't got any arms. He hasn't got any legs. He's got 4 wings.
Well, he's got like eyes and giant mouth.
He's got eyes and a giant mouth because he's a serpent. Find me a serpent that doesn't have eyes and a giant mouth.
Find me a serpent that doesn't talk.
A serpent that doesn't talk?
Yeah, all of them. Kakol can talk. Boom, I win.
Is that how you're going to win this argument?
Yeah, I'm gonna win by the fact Kakol can talk.
The fact that he can talk. Okay. Actually, the question from that lies in you've got a dragon dude, serpent thing that can talk. Why can the Donkey Kong skin not talk properly? Yeah.
Well, if we're gonna go to that, why can't the Camazot's skin talk properly as well? Because they want to just have fun. They want to have fun skins out there.
They are some nice skins. They are cool skins.
Yeah. And I especially love the Raijin skin. That one's become my go-to Raijin skin.
That Raijin skin is actually like I wasn't expecting it to happen like this soon, but I'm wondering because you know how trigger happy Nintendo are with cease and desists and takedowns. Do you reckon that it's very close to Donkey Kong?
I reckon that they would have noticed already, and if it hasn't happened by now, then it won't happen.
You never know. Don't forget, there were some fan games up for a little while, and then Nintendo took them down.
Yeah, but those are fan games which people may not have heard of for a long, long time. Smite's quite big in the MOBA scene. That's
a fair point, actually. Smite has been getting a fair amount of attention. Actually, after Worlds, Smite has had a lot of attention.
Yeah. Yeah, don't forget, this skin was revealed at Worlds.
Yeah. That's a fair point. If Nintendo were gonna sue them, we would have done it by now. You're right. Yeah.
So I think the skin is here to stay, and if it's not, then well, they're gonna reclassify it. They may do something different with the gorilla. I'm not too sure.
Instead of having bananas, we'll give him drumsticks. There you go, done.
Oh, it's got to have bananas gorillas usually eat bamboo shoots, so they'll probably change it to that.
Yeah, and then make him throw bananas as his basic attacks.
Okay, that's no.
What? What's wrong with that?
I mean, they're doing that already.
That's a fair point. Yeah. Oh well.
Right.
That skin was pretty good though.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to the new skins coming out as well. We've got a couple skins coming this week, if I remember correctly.
Tuesday.
Yeah, in line with the Celtic event. Now, bear in mind, guys, the Celtic event is free for everyone who has Twitch Prime. If you've got Amazon Prime and you've linked it with your Twitch account, for those of you in countries that can link or can have Amazon Prime, you can get the Janus JT6000, I think it's called.
I think it's either 6,000 or 600.
I'm just going to check now. It is the Janus JT6000, which is his Twitch skin. It's got the Twitch Prime logos on his shoulders and the Twitch logo on his back. It's basically the Yandroid skin, just without the voice pack.
No, it has the voice pack.
Oh, it has the voice pack now.
Because and during the reveal video, they used the exact same voice pack as they did for Jandroid.
Ah, so it's not got its own Twitch.
No, it's basically a Jandroid recolor out there for anybody with Twitch Prime.
It's Jandroid that's purple. Okay, that makes sense.
Right. And don't forget, anybody who also gets the Celtic event through Twitch Prime will also receive 2 skins, one for Terra and one for Artemis, a Celtic loading frame, a Celtic music theme, and a Druid Shrine.
Druid Shrine what?
Pedestal.
There you go. You cut out for a second there. Also,
right, fair enough.
if you are not able to get Twitch Prime, you can still purchase access to the event. It does cost 1,000 gems. A fair number of people have complained about it, but 1,000 gems, when you consider what you're getting for it, I would say it's not a bad deal.
Yeah, you're gonna at the end of the event, you also get a skin for Morrigan and Cutesy, the Morrigan avatar. So overall, you're getting 3 skins and 4 cosmetics.
Yeah, so I'd say it's worth it. It would be nice to be able to get it through Twitch Prime, but if you're like me and it's not working properly for you, 1,000 gems. I don't know what's going on. I've got Amazon Prime. I've linked it to Twitch. It is saying, "Do you want to start your trial?" I'm like, "No, I want you to recognize that I have Twitch Prime or Amazon Prime." So
no, it works perfectly for me, so I'm absolutely happy with it.
Screw you. But no, I'm going to be buying it with 1,000 gems, so it's not that bad a deal anyway. So.
Yeah. It's going to be fine, and it's going to prep people for the Season 4 changes, which will be incoming soon. I believe the patch notes are going to be this Wednesday, the 18th. I believe they meant something.
I believe the patch notes are after the Celtic event starts, the day after the Celtic event starts, and then a week after the Celtic event, we enter Season 4.
No. If I remember correctly, they'll making the switch to Season 4 on the 31st of January.
Is it the 31st? I remember it being the 24th.
No, because it would make more sense if it was the 31st, because don't forget, the open bracket qualification for the relegations is going to be on the 21st, 22nd, 28th, and 29th.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So they don't want to be doing one during Season 3 and one during Season 4.
Yeah. That's a fair point, because can you imagine how unfair that would be? Hey, here's this map that you've never played on before. Play.
And don't forget, the changes from Season 2 to Season 3, they also had a 2-week PTS cycle rather than a 1-week PTS cycle, because there was a lot of changes to go through, to balance, and to test out. Yeah,
we have got a fair number of changes for the Season 4 map so far that we've heard from.
Yeah.
And actually, should we go on to talking about the...
I mean, do we have time?
We have time-ish. We're pretty close to time, but we got time.
I mean, we don't have too many exact details, but we do have is a generalization, and that is going to be big focuses to the start, which means there's going to be new starter items and Tier 1 item changes. I'm not too sure who this benefits, because we haven't exactly seen who. We haven't seen what changes are going to be there, but there is one item which I am very interested in.
Which one?
It's going to be a new starter item that gives, I think it was a tiny bit less stats than your traditional starter items like Vamp Shroud or Soulstone, but what it does do is it gives massive benefits for each kill you have.
Okay, that's an interesting one.
So it's going to be for those very aggressive early game gods. It might be a physical starter item, it might be a magical solo item. I didn't quite check that one, but if it's a magical starter item, your early game mages are going to be so happy with that. Poseidon is going to be having an absolute field day with that one.
Scylla won't, but that's Scylla.
Well, don't be crazy. They're going to buff her early game damage.
Oh no.
Yeah, they're going to buff her early game damage so she can use the item.
But her late game damage is ridiculous.
They'll buff that as well.
No! Next time we're going to buff Loki. Bloody Loki, Jesus Christ. But no, I did
he
have.
Already has the best stealth in the game.
Huh?
He already has the best stealth in the game. He doesn't need anything else.
Stealth is ridiculous. Like, I've actually found some people on the Smite subreddit that agree with me that his stealth is bloated. Like, it's the definition of bloat. So,
yeah, it definitely is.
I would like to see. There is an item I posted to you about it a while ago. An item which would actually be quite cool to see, and that'd be like if you got it, it didn't give you much. But if you get kills and stuff, it increases the value of that starter item, so you can sell it back for more gold than you bought it for eventually, if you make good use of it. I thought that'd be pretty cool.
Like extra gold generated per kill sort of thing.
Yeah. You can either lock it into the item or give them more gold.
I don't know if I'll lock it into the item, because that would just create a whole nother sub thing of items that we don't really need right now. And they also said there's going to be a lot of changes to Tier 1 items, so they are really focusing on what items you can buy at the very start of the game. I think the ones which people would like to buy but can't really because of the potion loss they would receive.
Yeah.
For example, Soul Reliquary. I think that's going to be having a price reduction. Or it might be Soul Trap Tier 1.
We've seen some of the new items properly to an extent now. We know that there are going to be tiered actives. We know they're coming in. We know that there's going to be a new consumable, which is essentially you buy it, and every time you go back to base, it refills. So it's essentially a potion, and you go back to base, it refills. You go back into lane, and you've got another potion there. I think they're a bit more, they're a fair amount more expensive than a normal potion. Potion's 50 gold. I think this one's like 300, but it constantly refills. I don't know if you're going to be able to sell those, but
I think you'll be able to sell them.
They'd have to be able to be sold, wouldn't they? Otherwise, you're trading a ward spot for it. So.
Yeah, and one other big thing which I think is going to be absolutely amazing to see is a focus away from the early game changes that they are doing, and it's the hyper late game changes that they're doing. And these two new items, which are going to be able to allow you, they're called rituals, and they're going to allow you to just buff your team immensely. I think one of them is basically going to be like Frenzy on steroids, as they put it.
And these are consumables, aren't they? They're going to be...
There's a 500 gold consumables, which you use once, and then the entire team gets the entire people in range get buffed massively.
That's interesting to see. I mean, we've had things similar to that before, like ages ago. We had these really cool buff items which we could buy, but the fact that they're coming back, we're going to see a lot of play around those. I feel there was there's a change to the map as well that they've teased. And that's what's it? If you kill it's a new bloody objective. If you kill it, it opens up a portal that you can get to from base.
Yeah,
and that is going to be interesting to see, because that's gonna if you're behind and you get that, you've suddenly got a bit more access to the map. I'm going to be interested to see how that works.
I want to see exactly how they balance around it, because they said to begin with that it was only going to spawn after 10 minutes to stop people using it to just have free teleports back into lane.
Yeah,
which is actually what it should be there for. It should be there to get you back into lane quickly because you got pushed out. It should be there to help you regroup at the fire shine when you want to try and push it down, or defend your own entirety of the right side of the jungle. But instead, we're also going to be seeing another objective over on the left-hand side on the Gold Fury. Left-hand side of the Spectator UI, obviously. Right-hand side if you're playing on the Chaos side. But the Gold Fury pit's getting two small Furies as well. And those Furies, if you kill both of them, will place an unkillable sentry ward on top of the Gold Fury pit for a set amount of time. I think it's going to be the exact same timer as a regular ward, so 3 minutes of just pure free vision onto that Gold Fury.
That's cool. That's a good way of doing it, I feel. And the baby Furies, do we know if they're going to give any reward other than the vision, like a little bit of gold, or? I
think it might give a tiny bit of gold. Like, they don't want to oversaturate the buff, I don't think.
Yeah.
Because getting that massive vision coverage and that basically free win of the vision battle for the next 3 minutes is too strong to really reward with the extra amounts of gold.
I mean, that ward alone is probably worth it. I don't think there's going to be any complaints if they make it so that you kill those and you get the ward. So.
Right. You can also forces the entire focus away from just the fire giant pit, because you already have the fire imps there for the first 10 minutes, and then you've got this new monster after the first 10 minutes, which can then spawn a portal. It was almost as if they were taking everything away from the Gold Fury. Now they're giving something back to it, and it's become a much more prominent objective once again.
I mean, hopefully we'll be able to see the junglers go over into the left side of the map a bit more often, because currently you only ever see the jungler in mid and right, because that's where everything is. So having these baby Furies, I'm hoping we'll see a bit more action on the left-hand side of the map, because as we saw at Worlds, people are just turning the AD of long lane into solo island now, which is just two ADs going nuts at each other, while literally everyone else is on the right-hand side of the map in a massive fight.
And I think the one final change we should really be talking about before we wrap this up is going to be the one that was announced as the first change in Season 4, which is going to be the change to Magical Lifesteal. Right now, Magical Lifesteal has a 33% coefficient, meaning if you buy something with 15% lifesteal, you're only getting 5% lifesteal off it. That coefficient is going away, meaning if you buy something with 15% lifesteal, you're getting the full 15% lifesteal through your abilities and basic attacks.
That's been getting a lot of questions asked, because there are currently Freya and Anubis who have lifesteal in their kit. Anubis isn't really picked up as much, and we saw him at Worlds, but Anubis in general, people don't like him because he roots himself when using a ton of his abilities. But Freya, she's already a high-performing god. This extra lifesteal, they're gonna have to tweak her. Because she's crazy at this point in time. She's gonna be obscene when this change hits.
I think this just might be one elaborate bait by Hi-Rez, and instead of like just removing the coefficient, they're also gonna... No, what they're also gonna do is they're also gonna reduce all the lifesteal on the items by a third as well. Like put it down to a third.
So let's make it make sense.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what they might be doing. Yeah. They just teased us to try to see the reaction that we get.
So lowering 15% to 5, which is technically lowering it to what it is.
Yes.
Yeah. So I know a lot of people have a knee-jerk reaction when they see this sort of thing. That they're like, oh no, they've not thought this through. Really, I get the feeling with this, like you, that it's probably going to be more a simplicity change, a quality of life change.
Yeah.
So that you don't have to sit there going, well, it says I've got 30% lifesteal, but it actually means I've got 10% lifesteal. What you'll see, oh, I've got 10% lifesteal. And not have to think about what you've actually got.
Well, because right now, my favorite item in the game, Pythagoras piece, if you're the one who has it, because of the aura and the lifesteal on it presently, you will get 30% lifesteal, which is in fact 10%.
Yeah.
But if you're Anubis, it actually goes up to 20%, but that's a story for another day.
That's just Anubis, being Anubis.
Yeah, it's a great item, and I would like to see the proper changes made with this lifesteal change that they're introduced, so that it doesn't oversaturate the market for mages everywhere.
Yeah. Right then.
Well, I think that's going to be us for this show.
Yeah, I believe that is us. If you are new to this show, please bear in mind that we'll be airing every week, Sunday afternoon at some point. It depends on when I actually get the video edited and the recording sorted. Do check us out on Twitter. We are Pantheon Podcast on Twitter. I am at Darkkai3 and AJ is at AlphaJackal.
Yep. Don't
be confused. It says Cyclone Jack at the moment. And that's because AJ is shilling himself.
Well, I am coach of Cyclone. We are going to be number one team.
Number one.
Yeah.
You know what happens every time a team says they're number one? They proceed to get annihilated in the next matches.
Well, all our first matches are in relegations, which are going to be coming up in the first week of February. So we're definitely going to look forward to that, and we can't wait to see what everybody else brings to the open brackets as well.
Sure, they're going to be good matches. Remember, guys, we do have the Celtic event this week starting on the 17th. Go check that out. If you are new to Smite, please do go download it and try a few games. I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy it. But other than that, guys, hopefully you enjoyed the show. Follow us on all of our Twitters and social medias, and we will see you again next week for some Pantheon Podcast Smite discussion. Goodbye.